Hi, boys and girls. So really quickly, I know that this whole video is going to be a little different than what we've been doing so far for math, only because there's a lot of information, and I don't think it would be a good idea for me to write everything here when I can show you here, especially because my whiteboard's not too big. Otherwise I would. But anyways, so we'll just get started. And make sure you can actually follow along in your book because I'm doing the work in the book. So we're on page 415, lesson 10.5. So today we're going to learn about classifying quadrilaterals. So a quadrilateral, I'm looking here, a quadrilateral is a polygon, oh, sorry about that, with 4 sides and 4 angles. So a polygon is a shape that has 3 or more sides or angles. But a quadrilateral, more specifically, has 4 sides and 4 angles. So all the shapes we're looking at, the polygons we're looking at today, have those specific qualities or characteristics. 4 sides, 4 angles, at least, right? So it says you can name a quadrilateral by the vertices of its angles. So the vertices, if you remember, is the part, like the point where two, I guess, lines meet. And it would be like this, for example. E here is a vertex, C is D and A, okay? So that's how you would name it. For example, this quadrilateral could be quadrilateral ABCD or ADCB or BCDA, whatever order. So these are very common quadrilaterals. So first we have a trapezoid. So a trapezoid, remember, it has to have, if it's a quadrilateral, it has to have 4 sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 angles. 1, 2, 3, 4. But something different about a trapezoid is that it has one pair of parallel lines. So remember, parallel lines are lines that are the same distance apart, but they never cross. So for example, on a trapezoid, it would be the top and the bottom. So a question I have for you, and I want you to take some time and pause, is why could it not be these two sides here? So remember, last time when we had a diagram and it was kind of like this trapezoid, I said that I personally like to draw lines. Like I like to extend the lines and pretend like they're going on forever and ever. Okay? So let's say I'm extending these two lines on forever and ever. But I know that we have these two sides too. But if I extended these two sides because they're kind of at an angle and I drew my lines, these two lines would eventually intersect here. So they're not parallel because they can't, parallel lines cannot ever meet. They can never intersect. So that's what's special about a trapezoid. Now a parallelogram, the next one, has 2 pairs of parallel sides. So the top 2, these 2, and the 2 sides, okay? And 2 pairs of sides of equal length. So something to know about these little blue markings that you see. And I'm going to draw a parallelogram right here. So this is not perfect, sorry. But whenever you see a parallelogram and you see that they have these little dashes, these blue dashes here, and 1. So you can't really see. My markers are dying. Okay, so this top one has these 2 blue dashes and the sides have 1 blue dash. So what that means is that these 2 top lines are equal. And these 2 with 1 line are equal too. This one cannot be equal to this line because that's what this marking means. That's what it tells us, that they're equal. You'll see this a lot in geometry just because it saves time from them having to write the numbers again, and they just want you to be able to identify these things. So parallelogram has 2 parallel sides two sets, and another two pairs of equal sides. Okay? Now a rhombus, the next one, kind of looks like a square, right? And the parallelogram kind of looks like a rectangle, except it's a little slanted. So a rhombus has two pairs of parallel sides, kind of like the parallelogram, right? But it has four sides of equal length. So that means every single side, if you look here at the rhombus, every single side only has one blue line, which means they're all equal. Now, your lesson today is going to be about classifying and identifying quadrilaterals. A lot of these quadrilaterals have a lot of the same characteristics. For example, a rhombus and a parallelogram both have two pairs of parallel sides, but there's usually something that's different about each of them, even if they have one thing in common. A rectangle, here we go. We've all heard of a rectangle. A rectangle has two pairs of parallel sides, two pairs of sides of equal length. Sounds a lot like a parallelogram, but it has four right angles. So what that looks like is we have the two top lines that are equal and parallel, the two side lines that are equal because they each have one blue line and parallel, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 right angles. And a right angle is equal to 90 degrees, and usually this blue little box here is what helps us identify that it is a right angle. A square, here's where it gets tricky. A square has two pairs of parallel sides, so 1, 2, and these are parallel too, four sides of equal length, and four right angles. So, many of you remember Miss Kaylin. Miss Kaylin loved this lesson because she would always say, a square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle can't be a square. So she would make the students say that 10 times really fast, just so they could remember. So I'm going to challenge you guys to do that too. I won't do it, but it's a square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle cannot be a square. Now, why is that, Miss Alvarez? Well, if you look at the rectangle and square on the screen, the rectangle has four right angles, so does the square. The square has two pairs of parallel sides, and so does the rectangle. But it says that a rectangle has two pairs of sides of equal length, but a square, all four sides are of equal length. So what that's saying is, if all four sides are of equal length, then yeah, they can be a rectangle because all you need is two pairs of sides of equal length. So it makes sense. But rectangle cannot be a square because in order for it to be a square, all of the sides need to be equal. But that's not what it is on the rectangle. Because if we see, we have two lines on top and two lines on bottom, which means those are equal, but the two on the side are not equal to the ones on top and bottom. Right? I know it's a bit confusing, but you'll see it later on when we start to actually work with measurements and stuff like that. But that's pretty much our activity. Our lesson. I really, really recommend that you do this activity right here, activity 1, where it says identify the right angles in quadrilaterals. So it says use the quadrilateral color guide to color the quadrilaterals. So you're gonna need red, blue, and orange, and we're just identifying right angles right now. So for example, the red says exactly 4 right angles. Well, this one has exactly 4 right angles. Do we see any others with 4 right angles? Then this one says exactly 2 right angles. Well, are there any here? Maybe this one that have 2 right angles. And the last one says exactly 1 right angle. So it's a pretty simple activity. Now down here, we're going to write the names of the quadrilaterals in the Venn diagram. So these are the names that you need to remember. Oops, sorry. I went too far. So these are the names that you need to remember: trapezoid, parallelogram, rhombus, rectangle, square. So your job is to label each of these. Now you have the blue lines on the screen that it shows you here, 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 right? And then you have, right angles that it shows you too. So I know these don't look like all the shapes that we talked about up here. Why do I keep doing that? Sorry. I know it doesn't look like all of these shapes, but they can be classified as a quadrilateral, as one of those quadrilaterals, using the list of characteristics. Now, I know I didn't write all of this down, but I highly recommend that you write it down, just to practice remembering everything. Your work for today is to come down here to share and show, and you're going to classify each of the figures as many ways as possible. So what that means is you can look at this one right here too. It says you have to classify it as a quadrilateral, a trapezoid, parallelogram, rhombus, rectangle, or square. All of these are quadrilaterals. So you're going to write quadrilateral on every single one, okay? Now, I gave you the option to write the answers on skies, but I also clicked on the little camera so you can post a picture because I know you're going to have to write more than one on each of them. So you can do either or, whatever's easiest for you. And basically you could just write it like, if you are going to write it on skies, or type it on skies, sorry, then for example, this first one would be a quadrilateral. They're all quadrilaterals. And you could write a comma, and then I don't have room here, but you could keep writing. It's also, I believe it's a trapezoid. Actually, it's not a trapezoid. It has no parallel sides. It's just a quadrilateral. This may not be able to be classified as anything else, so you might just have to classify it as a quadrilateral. Okay? So you'll do 1 through 7 for on your own, and then tomorrow will be a different review of this lesson on skies. If you have any questions, let me know. Make sure you write down any questions or circle any problems you don't know, and we can review them during our skies meeting. Okay, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later. Bye.